So when customers call, many of them are retirees or they're about to be retirees, and they're doing their research about where they want to live and how much it'll cost. So let me give you a real bare bones example from a friend, a client of mine that just moved here. So hang around. So I'm Steve Kimos, a local realtor specializing in new construction here in beautiful but 65 degrees and raining Port St. Lucie, Florida. Now, retiring has so many psychological aspects, and there are a ton of articles and YouTube channels that address every aspect of retirement that you can imagine. But that being said, I want to show you a real financial example of retiring on the Treasure Coast in Florida. But before doing that, I want to share two psychological aspects that I encounter with almost every single retiree. One is retiree buyer's remorse. If you're lucky enough to be a person that can manage and afford two places, this really won't apply to you. But if you're like most retirees and you want to limit your expenses and you only want one home, then this applies. Now, when you leave an area where you've been living for a long time, you leave what you know. You leave behind family, friends, and it's a psychological transition on top of all the other psychological transitions brought on by retirement. That is why many of my clients go for an over 55 community, because there are so many things to do, so many people to meet, there's so many activities, clubs, events. You can choose to be around people or you can choose to be by yourself. But I find that customers and clients usually find a group they connect with. And many of them end up being friends after all that time. So at least provide yourself with the option to meet people and connect with others that have retired and moved to the Treasure Coast. Now, that being said, many retirees that come to Florida question their decision. Now, during that transition, you can be a little lonely. I always say to people, look, give it time. Don't make any decisions till 2 years have passed. The research shows that around 2 years in a new place, it'll start to seem like home, or at least start to feel like home. People that were questioning their decision and whether or not to go back always say, I'm glad I waited. Now I love it. So give it a chance. One thing's for certain, very few people miss the weather up north. Now, two, that it's a psychological switch from building to using and consuming. You spend 30 years of your career constantly trying to build a financial nest egg. You go, 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 you save, you invest, and now you're ready to reap those rewards. But it's not so simple to turn that switch to enjoying those rewards. It took me a 2 full year span to start to turn that switch, and I'm still turning it. It's part of the reason I'm working now. But the main reason I'm working now is I enjoy working, and that I enjoy doing something and helping other people find what works for them. I'm blessed that I don't have to work, but there's also some latent fear that I still need to build some money. The fact is I don't, and neither will you if you've planned well and you're reasonable. Remember, it's not an either or thing, and you can partially retire. You can work part-time. There's all kinds of things you can do to help you with that switch. You see, when retiring, you have to learn to run the faucet with the drain open. You need to control how much water is coming in the sink and how much is leaving the sink. Water, of course, being money. This is a good transition to the financial example because you can't control how much the water leaves the sink without knowing how big the drain is and how to control that flow. So let's talk about that. Now, as for the water coming into the sink, that's pretty easy to figure out between you and your financial advisor, or just you. I mean, you look at the pensions you have that might be coming in, your investments, Social Security, any part-time jobs you had, and you just add that up and you'll know what your monthly flow of water or money coming in is going to be. Now, when I talk about expenses, I don't mean what it costs to move, decorate a house and such. They're all expensive, but what I'm talking about is the monthly expenses you encounter with living here on the Treasure Coast. So you watch these YouTube channels of all the people saying, oh, Florida's falling apart, the sky's falling. It just isn't true. It might be true in some parts of Florida, but not here. Are things getting more expensive? Well, yeah, that's the case everywhere. Is it the bargain it was 15, 20 years ago? No, but it's still pretty good. Now, other places like South Carolina are experiencing the same thing. I mean, you could always go to Arkansas or Montana and find a much lower cost of living if that's where you want to be. But you're looking here because Florida's a climate where you want to be. So let's talk about Florida. So the real example I want to show you is from a single friend of mine, who's a customer, who was educated for 30 years, who retired and moved to Port St. Lucie. Now, in this true life example, there are no mortgage because his house was paid off, so he bought his house in cash. So let's start with the water coming out of the faucet for him, which is his pension, which gives him, after all taxes, deductions, including health care, are removed, is about $4,800. Now remember, he gets the benefit of no state taxes coming out of his pension because he's in Florida. Also, when he gets to 62 or 63 years old, he'll get a $2,500 Social Security benefit. Now, Social Security is still there, so Social Security isn't in this example, but by the way, I believe Social Security will be around in some form, but let's not count the chickens before they hatch. So he'll have $7,200 coming in when he's 62 or 63, but for right now, it's $4,800. So that's the water coming in. So the water leaving the drain. First are taxes. He bought his house for $438,000, and it was assessed at $357,000 after his $50,000 homestead exemption. So he ended up paying $8,500 in taxes. Now, the actual tax bill was $9,500 in taxes, but if you paid during the first month of your bill, you get a certain discount. So $8,500 in taxes it is. Now, some people think that's a bargain, depending on where you're coming from, but some think it's incredibly expensive. Now, Port St. Lucie is a little more expensive in taxes than other Treasure Coast counties. But you get your house here for a lot less. It would take you 29 years of tax savings to make up what you saved in your house by buying in Port St. Lucie. So after that comes homeowners insurance. This scares people, and it should. If you buy a house, concrete block construction, impact windows and doors, and all the other features related to building to Miami-Dade code, you're okay. And by the way, if you're not near the coast and you're not in a flood zone, insurance isn't going to be a problem for you. Most of my clients are paying between $1,500 and $1,900 a year for a 2,000 square foot newer construction house. Now the laws have changed and insurers are coming back to the state. However, if you want to buy an older house or a house close to the coast or a condo on the coast, you're going to be paying, $4,000 to $6,000 for your homeowners insurance. So next thing in the financial example is HOAs. Now, how much association fees cost vary. The more amenities in your neighborhood, generally, the more expensive your homeowners association will be. Now, in this example, my client/friend pays $440 a month in homeowners association dues. This includes the Master Tradition HOA and his neighborhood fee combined. Now, some of you may think, oh, that's a lot. But what do you get? Now, in this case, he gets cable and internet, lawn and garden care, bug treatment, monitored security, a gate, a pool, a hot tub, and a small gym, and irrigation are all included in that fee. It would be a tough challenge to get all those services in the private market for $440 a month. Now, HOAs buy in bulk, and they can get a decent price. In addition, you get the protections of not having neighbors that don't keep up their properties or they paint their house pink, or they put cars on blocks in the front of their yard and never cut their lawns and leave their trash bags out. Yeah, you hear some nightmares about HOAs being controlling, but that's not the general widespread truth. So next up in the example are utilities. Now, utilities in Port St. Lucie are relatively cheap. For a 2,000 square foot house, most people pay around $80 a month in the winter for their electricity and $150 to $170 a month during the summer. If you're in a gas community, gas usually runs $30 to $50 a month, and water here in the Treasure Coast is usually $48 to $70 a month. All that added up, you'll be paying between $120 and $190 in all, but let's just round it and say about $190 a month. Now, real quick, a word about car insurance. And it's not in this example, but you need to know it's around $20 more a month on average here in Florida, depending on where you're coming from. When I came here from Maryland, my insurance went up about $20 a month, so I wanted you to know that and have that in here. So let's look at the final numbers. So in the end, you should be around the same price per month as this example. Now, taxes are $708 a month. Homeowners insurance is $140 a month. HOA is $440. Utilities are $190. And you can put your car insurance as $110. But it's a total of around $1,500 a month. So realistically, you'll be between $1,400 and $1,700 a month in real expenses to live in a 2,000 square foot house in Tradition in Port St. Lucie. So in this case, after paying all home-related costs, he has $3,202 left a month for food, car, and other expenses. So this will become $5,700 clear once he gets his Social Security that comes in. So do you think you could do that? Look, I deal with clients where this is pocket change to them, but for most real people, $3,200 to $5,700 a month is pretty good to cover other expenses like food, gas, car. Now, if you add in a mortgage payment, now it gets kind of tight, especially if you're by yourself, like this example. If you have another person bringing in money, then the equation changes and more favorable for the retiree. So, thanks for listening. Now, the whole purpose of this exercise is to give you a baseline of what it will cost in living expenses, and I hope I've done that. It's also to get you to put on paper your inflow and outflow of money so you can make the best decision possible in the place you want to be with your wife, significant other, your financial advisor, by yourself, together to make sure your plan is right before you move. So if you have any questions or you want to talk some real numbers, you can always contact me. My information's on the screen and in the description below. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.